What's up, wrestling fans? It is time for another edition of The Voice of Wrestling. I am, of course, your host alongside Nick Paglino. And, Nick, we got a lot to obviously talk about tonight. I'm looking forward to it. And we've been off for a few weeks, guys, so I just want you to know that we apologize. Actually, we really don't apologize. We don't really give a shit if you, if we're not here. It's just because we're doing other important things, more important probably in our lives, and therefore, although Nick, you're going to have to stop working.
I mean, I wasn't actually. I've been just sitting here waiting this whole time
For like 4 weeks.
I had nothing to do.
For 4 weeks, Nick's been sitting there.
4 weeks, I've been sitting staring.
And look, I think
Now have somebody on the other line.
Nick Paglino, of course, the managing editor over there at ProWrestling.com. We're going to be taking some of the stories from there tonight, and there's a lot to obviously talk about, as a matter of fact. I mean, I brought it up earlier, but it's really never been true. And Nick, real quick, because I don't know how to. Skype is different these days. It's messing up on me. If you can, maybe
2018 Skype.
Yeah, if you can just like manually turn your volume down just a tad, that'd be awesome. I don't know how to do it. Look, tonight I want to talk about a lot of stuff. I want to talk about obviously the big story coming down the pipe from Paige, with Paige's career now being over. I was surfing ProWrestling.com and saw a gambling website listed some predictions or projections, favorites to win the Royal Rumble that I found semi-interesting. I don't put a lot of stock in those things, Nick, but they're fun to debate at least and kind of, see where Las Vegas might be putting some of the odds and everything. And you might actually be surprised, guys, who they have as number one now if you haven't seen the article. Goldberg is going to be the first Hall of Fame inductee. And just got announced earlier today, I believe, on ESPN. We might even talk a little TNA. I've got one specific thing I want to bring up about that. And then, of course, we've got the huge 25th anniversary of Raw coming up as well, Nick.
True. Well, hey, and as far as the TNA thing goes that you just brought up, I mean, it has been a very, very eventful week, with all the Impact tapings going on. So, for a change, there sort of is a lot that you really could get into with Impact right now. Seems to be another, it's another 7-8 months have gone by, so that means TNA gets another facelift,
right?
Or I don't know if you want to call it a facelift, but just a new face. You've got guys coming in, you've got guys leaving, you've got a ton of title changes, of course, and even changes to the presentation of the show because you now have new creative management there. So a lot happening with Impact Wrestling right now.
Yeah, and and it's interesting to me because I think, look, it's gone through so many changes. Dixie Carter now out. In fact, I was just watching the WWE Network the other day, and she's on there talking about AJ Styles, I guess, and a couple of the featured shows that they posted about some of the TNA guys. Samoa Joe, of course. Now that it's really interesting to see how far both companies have come, obviously, and WWE allowing TNA stars to be a huge part. And, of course, that's one of the things that I want to talk about. I think a couple of returns, actually, to Impact while some people are on their way out. So there is some stuff going on. And good God, Nick, it is still a pro wrestling company that has a national TV deal. So at the end of the day, I feel like we kind of have to try and talk about that sometimes. If we get the opportunity, there's something to talk about. But first, one of the big things, and I want to start off with Paige because I'm a huge fan of Paige. I really am, and I don't really, at this point, never did I care about the off-screen things that were going on in her life. None of that really affects me. It doesn't matter to me. I know some people get sucked up into those things, and it's like a bad train wreck, Nick. I'll pay attention, of course. I'll check it out, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that she is really, really good at what she does. And unfortunately, it looks like at least her WWE active in-ring career is going to be over. What's the latest, Nick, real quick, before we kind of dive into some of the details of it, but what's the latest on her? I did hear she was supposed to be there tonight. We just don't know what role she'll be in.
Correct. Yeah, she is backstage at Raw in San Antonio tonight. But again, all signs indicate that she has been told by officials that she has been disqualified from in-ring competition. She will not be cleared. And of course, the situation is very similar to that of a Daniel Bryan, and actually even more specifically Edge. Because the injuries are similar. With Daniel Bryan, it's a concussion issue, and that's what's preventing him from being cleared. With Paige, it's a neck issue, and it's pretty much the same thing that happened with Edge. It's what curtailed his career early. And yeah, like you said, at least with a guy like Edge, he was able to enjoy a Hall of Fame career before it was abruptly, I don't even know if you want to say it was cut short. It just didn't end on his terms.
No, right. Yep.
Paige is 25 years old, and literally, she came back so strong. She has had such a tumultuous year with the original injury that she had and then the subsequent neck surgery, everything that was going on in her personal life with Alberto Del Rio and their breakup and all of the public stuff that was coming out with them. It's just so sad to see this now happening to her on a professional level, because it seemed like, when everything couldn't go right in her personal life, at least she had her professional life to look forward to. And now that's being cut short. But yeah, on the bright side, she does have the WWE Studios film that's coming out later this year. I think that's being released in September theatrically. WWE is going to do an advanced screening of the movie over WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans. That movie, of course, Fighting with My Family, being directed by the guy who co-created the British version of The Office, also being produced by The Rock. WWE Studios has some big names attached to it, like Vince Vaughn. So I think that's going to be a very successful film, especially with the role that The Rock is on right now. And pretty much every movie he touches turns to absolute gold. So no doubt they'll be using Paige to help promote that film. There's a plethora of other ways they could use Paige in a non-wrestling capacity, much like they're doing with Daniel Bryan in that on-air role. She could be involved in WWE Studios films. So there's a lot that she can still do. She could transition to commentary, perhaps, like somebody like a Corey Graves, who was, had his career cut short due to injury. But nevertheless, a sad news to have to report about her.
Quick aside, Nick, you're a pseudo actor. You and your friends get together, write some scripts down, and like go perform in Times Square and stuff occasionally, right? I mean, y'all.
I mean, you make that sound like we write shit down and then we go to Times Square
on napkins.
Right, on napkins, and we dress as like Ninja Turtles and just
so
perform like weirdos.
Look, The Rock is absolutely massive, and I didn't mean to get off Paige so quickly. I'll give my thoughts in just a second. But, when I watch him, I mean, when I see him, I still don't really think he's that good of an actor. So I just
no.
Okay, you don't people in the business don't really think he's that good, do they?
I don't think so. I think, have you watched Ballers at all?
Oh yeah.
Ballers, I think, is really good.
I
think he's really good on that. He's very convincing. But these movies that he makes are just they're ridiculous. I mean,
there's a spot for that in Hollywood. It's not like.
Hey, are you kidding me? The Jumanji has already topped Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly there are people that want to see these movies. You know?
Right.
You say what you want about them. They're popcorn flicks. They're fun films. I don't think anybody's really taking it very seriously. But with the Paige movie, I think that, The Rock's not acting. Well, I don't know if he's acting in that. He may have a role, and if he does, I don't think it's a lead role. But I think for the most part, he's just producing the movie along with WWE Studios.
Right.
And again, like I said, it has some good names attached to it. So I think this one definitely has the chance to be something that's, let's see, you've got. Well, okay, so according to the IMDb profile right here, Dwayne Johnson is in the movie.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Lena Headey, who plays Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones, she's in it. Vince Vaughn is in it, and of course it's being directed by Stephen Merchant, who's a really big name.
Sure.
I'm trying to see if there's other people. The girl that's actually playing Paige in the movie, Florence Pugh, I'm not very familiar with her. But you've got Zelina Vega from NXT, otherwise known as Thea Trinidad, who's playing AJ Lee. So I think this really has the chance to be a very good film, and it will probably be, it's being billed as a biography and a comedy and a drama. With Stephen Merchant directing it, he has a big comedy background with The Office. I think this has a chance to be a really good movie. I'm actually anticipating this movie, so at least Paige has that going for her right now. If you try to find some silver lining in this situation,
well, and maybe we'll get a little bit of a better understanding of what they're going to do with Paige tonight. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. I think what's going to happen is they're going to give her time, let her make the announcement. Obviously, we've seen these happen. You brought up Edge. I remember the announcement from him where he had to say that it was cut short. I think that'll be the case. You'll allow the fans to really get on board, applauding her for even, again, just for being who she is, despite the fact she hasn't had a long, huge career. I think that's going to be pretty much it. I really don't see a lot more. Maybe some girls from the back, and of course, maybe they'll get involved and give her her props before she's out. But I think that's it. Now, and then she's going to probably be gone to kind of start focusing on the next stage. But here's my question to you: wrestling is in Paige's blood. You can tell she still is very. She enjoys her time in WWE. She'd prefer to be wrestling for WWE, but and you don't know her any more than I do, Nick. So maybe you've heard, or maybe I don't know, just your thoughts. She seems like a person to me that might not ultimately accept this fate. And
oh, absolutely.
And it wouldn't surprise me if she decided at some point to go get into the ring elsewhere. Maybe not right away, maybe not soon, but eventually it wouldn't surprise me if she. I mean, this isn't the first time a career. Look, I understand safety these days, Nick. I mean, I get it. I know why they're doing it now, and they're trying to be more cautious when it comes to concussions, obviously major neck injuries. But 15, 20 years ago, these things were not as big. They weren't ending careers. People wrestled or they worked. They were in sports in some form or fashion with these injuries at times. I mean, think about a guy like Kurt Angle, for example, who's had neck issues most of his life, shoulder, back, neck issues. It was probably recommended to him a dozen times in his career not to get back into the ring. So I understand WWE's stance on this, but I also believe that at some point it wouldn't surprise me if a second opinion or a third down the line, a doctor says, yeah, at your own risk. I don't recommend it, but it's at your own risk. Here's what could happen. If you're willing to accept that, then go for it if you want to.
Sure.
It just wouldn't surprise me with someone like Paige.
Hey, what's interesting, is that, the care that they're taking with Daniel Bryan right now, and it really is an interesting situation. And I think it also might be an indication as to how society, like you said before, how society is looking at these various injuries. Mm-hmm. The big injury today is concussions.
Sure.
And that's coming
across the board everywhere.
From across the board, but it's stemming mostly from the NFL and football. I think if concussions and CTE was limited strictly to professional wrestling, I don't think anybody would care about it.
Well, that's true. NFL's really mainstreamed it. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a mainstream issue right now because of the NFL.
Right.
You had the film with Will Smith that came out, which in fact, the doctor in that was basically modeled after the WWE doctor.
Right.
So what's interesting to me is that WWE will not clear Daniel Bryan to return to the ring. Now, that is after he has sworn up and down that countless numbers of doctors he's gone to outside of WWE, his own doctors, have all cleared him. And he even brought up the doctor and the concussion specialists who handled, I don't know if it was last year's Super Bowl or the previous year's Super Bowl, that were on hand, that administered the concussion protocols to the NFL players. These doctors cleared him, but WWE still will not clear him. Dr. Joseph Maroon, their #1 guy, will not clear him. Now, interestingly, in the Paige situation, she did a podcast last week. She appeared on Lillian Garcia's podcast, and she noted that her own private doctors, after she had surgery, advised her not to get back into the ring. But she went to WWE. She underwent the medical testing after her injury and after her long 1-year rehabilitation stint after the neck surgery, and WWE cleared her. So it's because obviously she's had returned to the ring, and she's been, I mean, when did she come back? Was that maybe a month or so ago, a couple months ago? So interestingly, and again, I'm only speculating here. I have no information other than what we know. I'm just wondering, I don't know if you find this interesting that, WWE, after outside doctors, Paige's doctors said it was, they advised against her returning to the ring. They cleared her and she returned, but they won't clear Daniel Bryan, which could potentially be maybe some sort of an idea, give you some sort of an idea as to how they, maybe rank the injuries. The neck injury is not a big deal right now. Nobody's really, the mainstream sports media is not talking about the neck injury right now. They're talking about the brain injury. Right. So, they may have thought, hey, you know what? This isn't going to be a PR nightmare if she ends up having to have another surgery or if something happens to her later on life. So they go ahead and they clear her. But after this last injury, maybe that's when they decided, you know what, enough is enough. Yeah, right. It's very clear after, maybe somebody else who suffered that same exact injury, that same spot in the ring with Sasha Banks, maybe they would have recovered okay, but because of everything she's gone through, she's not, and they decided to throw in the towel. So it is a very interesting situation, and it's also very complex. Because how do you deal with these things? And ultimately, I think they're probably dealing with it in the right way by saying, look, she's going to have to hang it up at this point.
Yeah, and like we both said, it's unfortunate. I think it'll be something she'll have to cope with. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with her tonight, what platform they give her, and of course, heartfelt speech. You assume is probably on its way. I'm looking forward to just kind of seeing that as well and sharing that moment with her tonight on Raw. I want to jump into the article that I saw on ProWrestling.com. Guys, go check it out. It's really interesting. We won't get into the entire list, and so if you want to kind of go look at what the full list is, you can do so. But new article up that talks about the favorites to win the 2018 Royal Rumble. According to the online betting site Paddy Power, Nakamura is actually now the favorite to win the Rumble, followed by Reigns, and then tied is Dolph Ziggler and John Cena right behind Reigns, which I found also interesting that we can get into. Yeah. Finn Balor is the 5th most likely, according to this website, followed by a 3-way tie that includes Randy Orton, Baron Corbin, and, ironically, Daniel Bryan. And then Braun Strowman is next. And Nick, I said earlier, I don't buy into these real gambling, websites and predictions or whatever projections that you want to say, the favorites, kind of odds on betting. I don't look at that and think that they really have any relevance anywhere, any place in pro wrestling. But I do find it an interesting read, specifically the fact that Nakamura has moved up. And I think that goes back to what we said a month ago, Nick. I mean, it seems as if, obviously, we kind of know how they're maybe setting the stage as far as the Raw side. With Braun Strowman, we thought potentially, but at the end of the day, we expect Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. On the SmackDown side, however, it definitely looks like Styles and Nakamura is what they're going to ultimately want at WrestleMania. And so Nakamura does kind of move to the top of my list because you and I both said, Nick, that it was a SmackDown star that was most likely going to win the Rumble this year. This kind of goes along with that theory. And I think that it makes a lot of sense. So let's start first with at least that it seems like they're on the right track with that. In fact, prior to seeing this list, and I'm reading the article that you had on ProWrestling.com, it said that prior to Nakamura being up there, it was John Cena taking the spot from Roman Reigns, and like it wouldn't have even been a valid list before Nakamura in my mind. Like, look, you can't count out Roman Reigns or John Cena. They're going to be if wrestling was real, they're your favorites. But kind of knowing what we know, it's not even a valid list with those guys on top in my mind, because I don't think either of them are really favored. Maybe Reigns, but I think this makes it at least semi-valid. So I'm very curious to that, but then I'm also curious to Dolph Ziggler being tied with John Cena. And I think that is also interesting. And really, if I were looking at it without this list on my mind now, Dolph, knowing everything, would have probably been would have been my top 3 picks most likely for the Rumble, because I can also see, if it's not Nakamura, maybe Dolph Ziggler and AJ Styles at WrestleMania, which would tear the house down. So, Nick, what did you think when you read this list, and how accurate do you think it is with Nakamura on top? And then, of course, talk about some of the other things that you found interesting.
Well, like you said, with the idea with Nakamura being on top, I think it still does sort of favor the SmackDown side, which I still believe, is the way that they're going to go here. And interestingly too, if you take into consideration that the pay-per-view is in Philadelphia, Nakamura would get a huge response if he won in Philadelphia, which is obviously a very smart crowd.
Sure.
He'll be a big fan favorite there.
Yeah.
John Cena will be booed out of the building if he wins, which they know, but they also don't care about that. I think John Cena was a favorite at one time because, again, it's that return factor. Even though John Cena sort of technically has made his return, we haven't seen much of John Cena as of late. Right. So I think that idea of him...
But I think returning before the Rumble at all just kind of nullified the idea of that win happening at Rumble. Plus, they've done that with him. So it's just... Right. I really counted John Cena out from the beginning, whether he was in it or not.
But like you said, you can never. He's one of those guys that you can just never count out.
And now after last week, by the way, John Cena. Now after last week, I mean, it's inevitable that Samoa Joe is tossing John Cena out. Like Samoa Joe's speech, and that his main mission is to eliminate John Cena. He's going to eliminate John Cena. I mean, you can tell WWE wants to book Samoa Joe strong as well, even though Roman Reigns is getting precedence, Braun Strowman's getting precedence. They're very high on Samoa Joe. I mean, you can tell. It's kind of Samoa Joe reminds me of, as far as how high they are on him right now, as far as like how high they were on Kevin Owens like a year and a half ago. Like Samoa Joe's kind of taken that spot. So, I mean, John Cena does not win the Rumble. I literally would bet anything anybody wanted. And I think Samoa Joe eliminates him. I think that's a foregone conclusion.
And I think there's a lot of different ways they can do that. Again, they can always do that.
Joe gets eliminated, and then he comes back in.
And then he comes back in and eliminates John Cena, which I'll always repeat this. It's my least favorite thing that I hate when I hate it. If you're out, you should be out. You shouldn't be able to eliminate a guy.
Doesn't count, damn it.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It doesn't count.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
I mean, but no, you're right. I mean, that could be a great setup, and I think it's a great way to go. And again, and remember, all signs point toward Undertaker John Cena at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% counting out John Cena, because at this point, and we talked about this too before with Cena, they are in a tough spot with him. Cena is slowly transitioning into a special attraction in WWE. You can't really book him long term. If he wins the Rumble, he gets the title shot at WrestleMania. Are you going to waste a title shot on a guy that a couple weeks after WrestleMania could be gone?
That's true.
He's filming his next movie. He's doing his next project. Yep. So, Cena is very slowly becoming that guy that is a Chris Jericho type part-timer in WWE. And you see the role that Chris Jericho's in. He's not winning championships. He's there to help put guys over.
Right.
And I think that John Cena is slowly starting to transition into that role, and he can help put a guy like Samoa Joe over if they have a match. Remember, there's a couple of pay-per-views before, and John Cena can float back and forth from Raw and SmackDown, so he can appear on both those pay-per-views. He can appear at Fastlane and at Elimination Chamber, and I believe WWE did, where I don't know if it was WWE, but I think it was the Arena website, did announce that John Cena will be at Fastlane. So he can have that singles match with Samoa Joe prior to WrestleMania, and I think it's great. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Some of the other guys, Dolph Ziggler, certainly I think his odds probably went up on the betting sites and with certain odds makers, again, because of the return aspect. He's gone. He's off TV. He did the whole, left and ditched the U.S. title storyline. So when he comes back, that could indicate that he's a bit more of a favorite to win the Royal Rumble. But again, I wouldn't put any amount of money on him winning the Rumble. Again, I think, unfortunately, the ship has sailed with Dolph Ziggler, and I think this time off of television right now is for him to just sort of recharge and take. I mean, this is the best thing for him right now. He needs to get off TV. He needs to take some time off. He needs to freshen himself up so he can come back with a little bit more momentum.
And I do agree with that, but I completely disagree with you on the fact that the ship has sailed and it might be the best thing for him at this point.
I mean, well, let me clarify by saying, when I say the ship has sailed, I mean from in terms of him being in the main event picture.
See, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Winning a top title, I don't see that anymore.
Well, look, here's the thing. Dolph has been that guy that they knew could go out and be the workhorse for a long time. I mean, he, obviously when VOW was off and on for a couple of years there, I was as high on Dolph Ziggler as anybody else in the company. I just think he's absolutely phenomenal. That being said, I think there is somewhat of a shift in WWE right now, whether it's good or bad or you're indifferent to it. Look at your main guys they're kind of pushing, with the exception of the typical guys like John Cena, and then obviously your Roman Reigns that are out there. But AJ Styles, Nakamura, I mean, even Kevin Owens is not a guy. Samoa Joe, these are not your prototypical Vince McMahon-esque or even Triple H guys.
But what have they been doing with Ziggler? I mean, they're not doing anything.
Well, no, they gave him the title, which I remember predicting on that pay-per-view that he won it.
The U.S. title.
The U.S. title, and then they just abruptly gave that away. Why? No, it hasn't really been explained, other than now it does. And I didn't really think about this. It just kind of, again, out of sight, out of mind thing with Ziggler, which is most times the case. I think that once I saw this list, though, and realized he was ramped up to 4th, it started making, why the hell would they put Dolph Ziggler that high? And it's because of the angle. It's because maybe the explanation is that the U.S. title isn't good enough for him right now. He's coming out for bigger, better things. And if that's the case, the Royal Rumble win happens. Look, this is a guy that the WWE owes something to at this point. I mean, at least subconsciously as a company, they should be, WWE, if I was going to personalize the WWE, it would be, they owe this to Dolph Ziggler in my mind. They need to utilize him before it's too late. They gave him the contract extension that you didn't know was going to happen a year ago or whenever it was, a couple years now. Gave him the big contract so he wouldn't leave, which was rumored for a long time up to that point. He's there for the long haul now. He's been a company guy for a long time. Give him his run. And why not? He deserves it as much as the next guy, if not more. I think he's as deserving and more deserving than a guy like AJ Styles. And I think if given the opportunity, he could do a lot more with it than AJ Styles because he's better on the mic. And Styles has gotten better, but I mean, Dolph Ziggler's still better on the mic than him to me by a long shot. But I don't put Dolph up there as like some amazing talker. But again, I honestly, Nakamura would probably be my first right now. Dolph would probably be my second. If I were going to bet money on who's going to win the Rumble, I would put a lot more stock into Dolph than you are. Like, honestly.
I mean, I just
screw you for not giving Dolph Ziggler love. Screw
I
you.
love Dolph Ziggler, but I just feel like he has a role in WWE now, and that is his role.
That's not
his role is to be the guy
No.
that sells for the up-and-comer. He's putting over guys like Baron Corbin, the next big guy, and I just feel like that's the role that he's settled into. Now, hey, who knows? This break that he has right now, maybe he's coming back with something big and strong and new and a revived push. But I'll say this. If he comes back in the Royal Rumble, I would say you don't bring him back until the night of, and he's a surprise return.
Yeah.
And if he does return at the Rumble in the match, the buzzer goes off and boom, surprise
his chances just went way up. Yeah.
His chances went way up. He's going to get a huge reaction. I don't think he's going to run into the ring and get eliminated immediately. I think he's going to get down to maybe that final 5, maybe 6, guys left in the match, maybe even the final 4.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't see him actually winning the thing. I really don't.
Well, I mean, and I agree with you. I think that he is in that position that you mentioned, but I don't think he should be. That's my point. I think he's long overdue. I think he could carry a SmackDown brand and then maybe further. I think he still has the chops in him, left in him to ultimately carve out a legitimate legacy for himself.
He's got it, no doubt about that.
But he's got to be given the opportunity, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, guys, check out that list. It really is interesting. We want to know what you think as well. Leave a comment wherever you're watching this video, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Let us know what you think. We'll get back to you, we promise, and start some good dialogue about it because I found it very interesting, kind of opened your mind up to a little bit more of the possibilities there. Speaking of WrestleMania, which, of course, the road to kick it off starts with the Rumble. I mean, we're right into the thick of pro wrestling when things get fun, and it's nice to be back talking about it as we head into New Orleans in April. Goldberg, Nick, Hall of Fame inductee, been rumored. We kind of maybe suspected that was going to happen, so it's good to see Goldberg getting his just due as well. I think Goldberg had a mark on this business in WCW, obviously. His WWE run wasn't what anybody anticipated it could be, and that's unfortunate, but that's kind of that's just how it went for a lot of the WCW guys that came over. Very few really got to be something in WWE. But I think it's going to be interesting. And then I guess, Nick, tell me if I'm wrong. Batista's the one that has been out talking about a return and being involved, right? Goldberg, we last saw him, at last WrestleMania? Yeah,
we last saw him at WrestleMania. He's
losing the title to Brock. I mean, what does he want to compete some more? Or
yeah, I think he said he's open to he's open to it. I mean, I think he said it's the whole never say never thing.
Okay,
as a matter of fact,
because he looked good during the program with Brock.
Great,
I mean,
and actually just today. After the announcement came through of the Hall of Fame induction, he did an interview with ESPN, and this is what he said when asked about a possible return for another run in WWE. He said, "It's going to be tough, I can tell you that. It's kind of like bookmarking the end of your career, although it ain't the end of nothing for me. I'm always living and breathing and looking for my next venture, and who's to say it couldn't happen at WWE again?" So right. I think he's been leaving that door open for a while now. He did go on record as saying that was a very difficult training process for him, because he's always said the tough thing about, returning for him is that he's got to go back to being in Goldberg shape.
Sure.
That is very difficult for him.
He was always ripped, yeah.
At his age, he's 50. To really get back into that shape is very difficult. But he hasn't ruled it out. Batista, on the other hand, is a guy that said he wants to come back, and he wants to work a final full-time schedule, and he sort of wants it to culminate in a program against Triple H. That's what he wants.
And I've talked about this in the past. I hate the idea of Triple H Batista. It doesn't do anybody any good, so hopefully he'll be willing to come in and do some other things that are actually needed for the guys that are going to be there tomorrow. But yeah, I think Goldberg is, and I think Goldberg did it smart last time around. I mean, come in, keep the crowd on your side. The crowd kind of popped for him. He wasn't there long enough for them to see his weaknesses at his older age and the ring rust. I mean, he really didn't. He came in, kind of kept it short and sweet, and he's off to the races again. And I thought that was interesting. Again, the fans could have easily crapped on Goldberg the way they did Batista's return, the way they've done Brock Lesnar in the past. I mean, they've sometimes they're just relentless. And that was a situation where I could have easily seen the fans doing that to Goldberg, but they didn't. And I think that was, again, because of the fact that he was there. Hulk Hogan, for example, when he would come back years ago, and the fans loved it. They ate it up. He got over against The Rock at WrestleMania, and yet it was shortly thereafter, and it wasn't supposed to be that way. I mean, Hulk was the heel, but it didn't go down that way at WrestleMania, but they ended up putting the title on Hulk, and before you know it, Hogan's being booed out of the building because people are like, all right, well, we really got our taste. We got our fix. We're no longer fiending for you, Hogan. You kind of suck these days. We're over it. So I like that, and I'm interested to see what they do with Goldberg, but no doubt he deserves to go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, the guy was seriously a major reason why WWE had such a hard time competing with WCW. The streak was just it really was something that held your attention as long as they drug that out. It got a little stale towards the end, and of course it was kind of anticlimactic. A lot of criticism around his ending of the streak, but at the end of the day, it was still such a huge deal, and it catapulted him to the top of that company, and he really did help carry that along with a few other guys for many years. So looking forward to seeing that and seeing if he does ever step back foot into the ring. Before we jump into Raw 25, a couple of final topics. Do want to talk a little bit about TNA, Nick, and Impact is just a little engine that can't. I mean, but it's still here, and it's amazing to me. And what surprises me is the poster child of that company for the past several years is now on his way out, in Ethan Carter. Ethan Carter has been that guy that, really had the talent, and a lot of people think he's kind of wasting them there in TNA. I don't think that's the case. I think anytime you can be on a national stage like that, Ring of Honor or TNA, go take it. Get yourself over a little bit, especially in today's landscape, an environment where WWE might actually give you a little bit of credit for that, whereas years ago they didn't do that. So I don't think he wasted his talents. But Nick, real quick, I don't know the background story on this, if there is one. It seemed like he at least asked for his release and was granted it. I don't know what his post-Impact plans or TNA plans are, if they've been announced in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Are there any rumblings of a WWE run with NXT or anything?
Oh, yeah, big rumblings of a WWE return. In fact, today, Rockstar Spud, who is supposed to be debuting with WWE imminently, he's been backstage at WWE events for the past few weeks. He actually posted a photo of him and Ethan Carter on Twitter today, and the caption said something like, on to the next phase for us. What other universe can we dominate? Which sort of might be teasing the WWE universe. It had been reported over the weekend, right after Ethan Carter III finished up with Impact, which I believe was at the Saturday night tapings. It had been reported that WWE is very interested in bringing him in. So early signs point toward EC3 going to WWE, and really the biggest indication there is that his contract with Impact was not set to expire until this summer, but he reportedly requested that he be released from his contract early, and they granted that. So that could be another indication that he maybe made up his mind that he wanted to go to WWE. But again,
what about look?
Hasn't been announced.
You've got the Rumble coming up, Nick. I don't look at Ethan Carter as some name that's gonna, blow the roof off of the place in New Orleans there if he shows up. But if they like the guy, if they want to give him an opportunity, and if he's now available, that's never out of the picture. The Rumble's a really, and if he's asking for it early, maybe there's a reason. Obviously, I'm not going to put a lot of stock into him being in the Rumble unless they're going to put him into some sort of kind of big storyline right out of the gate, which is, again, possible, but I don't know if that's really their system anymore. I think they are very, very committed to working people through the NXT system with very few exceptions, and I don't know that he is going to get that pass, but you never know, and I think that he certainly has the talent. So it's interesting to see what they're going to do with him, and of course Rockstar Spud. I didn't even know that, Nick. I mean, I think that's pretty cool because I like Rockstar Spud. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I think it'll be. I
think the plan right now is for him to debut on 205 Live.
Okay, that makes sense.
And to really help give that brand a boost.
That makes sense. So, but you know, on the flip side, you've got Ethan Carter on the way out. Rockstar Spud has left. You've got Scott Steiner. I think I saw something that he is now returning. And then, of course, Tommy Dreamer is back into working with, which isn't really surprising at all. Scott Steiner has been in and out of TNA for a while now as well, so that's not too concerning. But real quick before we move on, Nick, I have not followed enough at this point. I actually do still try to watch Impact as often as I can and kind of brief through it just so I can keep up with who's there and what's going on. But as far as the foundation behind the scenes with Impact, where do they stand now? I mean, what's the traffic like? I mean, what's their viewership like at this point over there? Are they still at Pop? Are they on Pop?
Yeah, they're still.
You know what? I try to watch.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain this. The last two editions of Impact, I was going to go watch them just a few nights ago. Something with the DirecTV box that it said it was on a different channel that my package didn't have or something. I don't know. Is it still? It's still on Pop TV, right?
It is still on Pop TV. Yes.
All right, because I didn't change my damn package, but all of a sudden it's still recording Impact, but it's not letting me watch it. Nevertheless,
I see.
So foundationally, where are they? I know Anthem Sports is the guys behind the scene with the Money Men, right?
True. They're still hovering right around that 300,000 viewer a week mark.
Really? That's still pretty stout then.
Say what?
That's still pretty good. I mean,
it's all right. I mean, it's dropped. Well, see, what was interesting was that it actually was doing its best since, in a long time when they were running the best of specials for that period of time in December when they didn't have any new content taped. So I think for maybe 2 straight weeks, they ran the best of 2017 Impact specials.
Well, that's not a good thing.
And those actually, it's not, because those did really well.
That's sad. That's not good.
Now they're back, and with their episodes that have come back.
And it's dropped off again.
Last week's dropped back down to maybe around, just north of 260, 270,000 viewers. So, the point is they're still lingering in that same spot. They really haven't gained that much more. And they really haven't lost that much more. They're kind of really still sort of lingering in that spot. But, I've said this a million times, and we've talked about it a million times in the years that we've been doing the show. They change management. They change talents. Top guys win. Top guys leave.
Writers.
Management comes in. But here's the thing. Nobody ever knows about it because they don't promote.
Nope.
They don't advertise.
No.
You've got Don Callis and Scott D'Amore, who are now the new executive creative heads in the company. Who knows that other than us?
Yeah.
That read the internet, that work on the internet.
Yeah.
No one knows.
Yeah.
Austin Aries is back. He won the championship. Who knows that? They don't promote. They never promote. When SmackDown changes its time slot, or it goes from Thursday to Friday or Wednesday, or it goes from 9 p.m. to 8 p.m., there are billboards all over New York City. They're on the sides of buses. Now, I understand WWE has a lot more money, and of course they can do that, but TNA is in this spot where they're releasing guys, then they're bringing in all these new guys. Right now, scheduled to return tonight. Scott Steiner.
Right.
Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah.
You got Austin Aries, who is back,
yeah.
re-signed with the company. So they're spending money bringing these guys back when maybe what they need to be doing is spending money advertising.
Yeah.
You know, I go back to that old saying, you know, if the tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, if Impact Wrestling does 250,000 viewers this week and next week they do 500,000, but no one knows about it.
Right. Well, and even when they were doing more than that, double, triple, quadruple, I mean, $1 million, 2 million. Look, you heard this, Nick, when we interviewed people, they'd go in the airport, Kevin Nash, these guys, I mean, they had no idea they were on Impact every week. They you know, people don't know these people just walking through an airport.
That example I used when there was video footage of Rob Van Dam doing an autograph signing. Yep. And some kid comes up to him and says, "Hey, when are you going to return to wrestling?" He goes, "I'm on television every Thursday night."
Right. That's been going on for years, and
nobody knows.
So I think, knows. And look, you know,
so they can do whatever they want. They can bring in as many talents as they want. They could bring in Hulk Hogan. They could bring in this guy, that guy. The only names that are really going to turn things around based on name alone is if they got a John Cena or a Roman Reigns
which isn't happening. No,
that's not going to happen. So you've got to get the word out there about your product. And the problem is, you know, it could be a great show, it could be a terrible show. Nobody knows about it.
No, I'm going to tell you a name that could help. Let me look it up. Ed Nordholm. Yes, Dolph Ziggler would tear that thing. Ed Nordholm from Anthem Sports. There's a name that can actually make a difference, just so you know. Him, the Anthem Sports guys. Because, again, like Scott D'Amore, Nick, you and I met him way back when. Good dude. Love that guy. Very smart, creative mind. I think he'll do fine as it relates to what you see on TV. That's really never been Impact's issue, despite the ups and downs, the changes to their structure and their format and what they would try to do. You know, Dixie was kind of throw any spaghetti string at the wall, see if it sticks. I mean, all of that that wasn't ever really the issue. It always has boiled down to marketing, and the only people that can help from a standpoint of the marketing issues first, it starts at the top with Anthem. They've got to they've got to put a team in there. And Scott D'Amore is not that guy. Like, if you expect Scott D'Amore, if you expect the guys that you have running the company as far as the day-to-day to be some genius marketers, it's just not going to happen. And you know, news flash for you guys at Impact. I mean, the fact that none of this has ever registered is just beyond me. There's a big, broad thing out there called the internet these days, and it's amazing at what people are able to accomplish with smart strategic marketing on there. It really, really is. If you utilize some of these social platforms that are out there and just some small things, some small tweaks that you could start trying to implement, I really think you'd be amazed at what you're able to do without worrying so much about your viewership and stuff. I mean, that is what it is at this point right now. I mean, it would take a lot to make a 10% increase overall in TV viewership these days. I mean, it's just the landscape is changing. The fact you've made it this far is amazing, but you really need to start going towards the future. I mean, and here's the thing: you have no restrictions. I mean, WWE at least has some restrictions as far as their board and stockholders and things. I mean, they've got a very corporate structure. You don't necessarily have that. I mean, you can absolutely reinvent the wheel if you wanted to. I mean, try to do whatever you wanted to do, but it really is going to boil down to marketing. It always has for TNA, and it always will. And you've got to start trying to really push the envelope a little bit with it. Before we start wrapping up, though, I did want to talk a little bit, Nick, about Raw 25. I'm really looking forward to next week's Monday Night Raw. I love nostalgia, obviously. I think It's going to be a fun show, full of nostalgia, lots of cheesy cameos, very little storyline progression, which, by the way, I think is a huge mistake. And we can talk about that in just a minute. But, Nick, real quick, what are you looking forward to next Monday night?
Oh, man, I it's funny that you brought up, cheesy cameos and things like that. I was watching, to get sort of ramped up for this, WWE Network's been airing a lot of old early 90s Raw episodes, a lot of them coming from the Manhattan Center and or back when they used to tape all over the country. And, I was watching some episode from back in 1993, which is the year that the Raw debuted. And I think it was an episode that was taped in White Plains, New York. And, it's funny, man. It's really, I guess it shows you how long that show has been on television.
Right.
Because man, was it a completely different product.
Oh, yeah.
A completely different show. And it was really funny because it was a White Plains event, a Raw that aired, I'm assuming it was the Monday after Survivor Series. So it was around the holiday time, around the Thanksgiving time, and Bret Hart came on and did this PSA, and he's like, and it's Bret Hart, and, he's like, this holiday, Bret the Hitman Hart here, and this holiday season, you're going to be out there and you're going to be partying and you're going to be having a good time because it's the holidays and it's Christmas and you're supposed to be out there having a good time. But I'll tell you what you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to drink and you're not supposed to drive. So be safe this holiday season. I mean, and the finger is just won't stop doing this. It's just like it was like a mechanical arm, that was like attached to his body. He's like, you go out there, be safe and don't drink and drive. This message from the Hitman and WWF, and so it was just funny that that's the kind of stuff they used to air back then, Right. And then you got Vince McMahon that would cut from he would go to commercial break, and he'd be like, when we come back, Razor Ramon's going to be in action. It's going to be incredible, and it's like, it was just such an older product, and it was just, they were doing things that today would be, if you think some of the stuff they're doing today is cheesy, my God, what they were doing back then, of course the product was almost aimed exclusively at children back then, but still, so I'm kind of looking forward to that feel at the Manhattan Center. It was reported earlier today that they're really going to try their best to mimic that first Raw setup.
That would be amazing.
Like they did in 93. So I'm expecting some of that stuff and maybe even hopefully some of that production value, because that's what, of course, it gives you the indication of how much this show has changed over the years. So, of course, in addition to all of the legends who are going to appear, and what role will The Undertaker have? Is this just going to be an appearance? We know Stone Cold Steve Austin's just appearing. Yeah. And he'll cut a promo and he'll do something fun and then he'll leave.
Right.
But what is The Undertaker going to do?
Yeah. Well,
is this just an appearance or is this setting up a WrestleMania return?
Probably setting it up. I think setting that up with Cena obviously is probably, they might start dropping some hints. Steve Austin, HBK, of course, is going to be there. You know there's going to be a ton of people there. And I want to give a quick shout out, though, to a guy that I've had my own personal history with, but I really wish he could be a part of it, because and people may not agree with me on saying this, but Vince Russo really deserves to be there as well. I mean, just his input and what he did for Raw during kind of such a peak time of pro wrestling, obviously back in the late 90s, mid-late 90s. I mean, he really deserves praise as well, and he won't get it, unfortunately, but just from me to him, obviously, despite mine and his differences, I do want to say that, I mean, it goes known, at least on my end, and many people, that you were definitely a huge instrumental part of Monday Night Raw, and I can't wait to see what happens. I don't know, Nick, that I agree with you in the sense that it was as cheesy back then any more than it is now. I think the cheesiness is absolutely as bad as it's been. And case in point, I remember watching it with over Raw, actually, with my mom. My family was over having dinner. My mom, I'm turning it on, watching it a little bit in the background with my daughter and stuff, and she walks by at the time that you've got Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy laughing hysterically at one another in different ways.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, it's hard to
Oh,
it's hard to explain that one away, man. It really is. No matter, and they've known that I've watched wrestling for 20 years. I mean, they knew all that, but I mean, 25 years at this point, whatever it is, they've known it. But
Right.
that's still very hard to be like, here's what this is. Don't just forget
Right.
about it. Like, I mean, it's,
Right.
I mean, look, it's
Just
pretty
go-
bad.
go back to sleep.
And before we get out of here, I want to take credit, Nick. You and I both talked about this when we knew the broken, woken Matt Hardy gimmick and everything was going to be. I want to say that literally in the last couple of times that I've seen Matt Hardy, you could hear crickets in these in this thing. That thing is about as dead to me as it is to everybody else, it appears, because and I like to take credit for things when I am right about stuff because I am arrogant, and I think personally that, look, Matt Hardy is a talented guy, a genius creator. They made a huge mistake all the way around in my mind by bringing this back to such a level that they have. It's like lightning does not strike twice in most instances, and I feel like give him the creative expression, the freedom to do something new, because believe it or not, Matt Hardy has the ability to do that. But to try and recreate that here, and personally, I think the raw, gritty, unprofessional delivery that Impact gave it is what really made it work in Impact. I mean, you pretty much had handhelds going around following these bastards around, and it was just stupid production. I mean, the quality was bad, everything was bad, and it worked. Now you've got WWE behind it, and they can do so much shit with production that it's insane, but it just doesn't work now. It's been awkward almost, Nick, the last couple of segments with Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. I mean, it just fell as flat gets.
Because it's WWE classically doing what they always do, which is we're seeing the exact same thing every week. They don't evolve anything.
Yeah.
Matt Hardy, when he was in TNA, the Broken character had tons of different levels and layers, and you had Rebby Hardy doing her thing, and Vanguard won, and they'd have the outside matches, and then there was the stuff with Brother Nero, and it just, the character was so much and offered so much. All Matt Hardy does now is come on, the segment opens with yes. He says something incoherent, and then he starts laughing wildly. And then Bray Wyatt pretty much does the same thing.
Right.
There's nothing else. But that is so typically WWE. Yeah. And, they debut something, and then what you see in that debut is what you will see for the next 8 months. Yeah. And, the fans know what this can be. The fans know what Matt Hardy can bring to this, but they're not going to allow it. They've reduced this down to a one-note thing. Now, hey, look, they haven't had their match yet, so I'm holding out for that. I think these two guys could have one match.
They'll do good.
So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe that'll breathe a little bit more life into this. Maybe when Jeff Hardy comes back, there were plans. As of a couple weeks ago,
I hope they keep him so far away from this, though. I really do.
If this is what it's going to be, then absolutely.
I think my prediction now is he won't touch this gimmick. I mean, I'd be surprised, maybe for a brief second, because you got to do something with Matt and Jeff, but get Jeff away from there as fast as possible while this thing, blows up before our eyes. I think it's coming. I just think it's gonna. I don't think it's ever really going to take off. I could be wrong, but I don't. I don't think that it's going to. And I feel bad for Matt. I really do, and for Bray. I think Bray is really in a rut right now too. I mean, they've got to find a way to. You can't recreate Bray Wyatt though. That's a character that just has to, somewhat evolve, but it can't. You can't remaster. I mean, they can't, change that up too much. You've got to keep that what makes him great. And this is such a good role for him, but you got to find a way to kind of freshen it up a little bit. And same thing with this Matt Hardy gimmick. If you're going to keep going down this road, you got to find a way to make it WWE and not this. It's not good. tonight, guys, enjoy Raw. We're going to be back hopefully next Monday as well to talk about everything going on. In fact, we might want to come on after Raw next week somehow, Nick, because I want to talk about the 25th anniversary. I mean, that's really all that I'm going to want to talk about next week. Absolutely. I really do. So we'll have to schedule that and play it by ear. But guys, tonight, hopefully they'll keep some good momentum going with Braun Strowman. Obviously, that follow-up is going to be good with Brock, Braun, and Kane. I think that's been some good TV lately. Nick, thumbs up, thumbs down on the backstage segment, with the ship crashing down on everybody that would normally kill someone. But, with the... I mean, I loved it. That's classic WWE to me.
It's classic WWE.
I mean,
it seems like every 6 months, a character in WWE murders someone.
And
it's right. And not only what people always talk about is the murder, but what people don't talk about is the fact that apparently WWE stars are immortal because they always come back from these horrific deaths that happen to them. Braun Strowman's such a sort of, he's an interesting character. Obviously we know he's a beast in the ring, but he's that big, sort of superhero type rah guy. You know what I mean? And so I think for him a segment like that works. I don't know. Would that segment have worked if it was AJ Styles that did it?
No, of course not.
Right.
No. It was only worked because it was Braun.
Because of how ridiculous it is.
Yes, it was over the top and not plausible in real life. But that's not wrestling, and that's what made it. I mean, and again, keep in mind, it's such a far cry from what they've done lately. Just same old, same old. I mean, it really is. That's what makes wrestling entertaining to me is shit that you just don't see every day, from the talent alone to the stories and the angles to those ridiculous segments and explosions and stuff. I mean, and segments and promos on a bridge, throwing shit over and falling off of cages and falling off of roofs. And I mean, just that's the stuff.
And wasn't Strowman, didn't he get smashed in a garbage company?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, and then he lifted the whole thing up over his head and threw it over the building, I think. I think that's what, and they've done that with Braun. Braun is really singled out as far as getting that type of creativity. And I mean, just because they want him to be put over as literally the strongest man in the world of all time. And I think that that's a good thing for him. Congrats. And you've gotten lucky. You've kind of got that that lottery. But at the end of the day, I think that it's working for him, and I hope they keep that up as well. You've got some other stuff, of course, going on. Roman Reigns and Miz. Miz returned last week real quick. Nick, your thoughts on Miz? Was it okay? You like it? No?
I like it.
I thought the segment was stupid.
Miz is just one of those guys, man. Miz is one of those guys that just...
He's the role player that you were talking about earlier, dude. I give you that.
He is the role. Okay, in reality, he's the role player because he doesn't really have anything else to offer. I mean, Rolling Stone named The Miz the #1 rated wrestler in 2017.
Right.
Would you ever call Miz a wrestler? I wouldn't call him a wrestler. Wrestling is not his strong suit.
Well, I mean, yes, I would call him a wrestler.
He's a performer.
Okay, you know what I mean? I get where you're going. Yeah.
Dolph Ziggler is a wrestler.
Sure.
Dolph Ziggler can get it done on the mic, in the ring. Yeah. I'm not coining this phrase. I think this was actually the guys over at Observer Radio. That said, and I think is the best way to categorize The Miz. The Miz is excellent on the mic, but he doesn't make me look forward to his match.
Right.
I don't ever really care about
That's
seeing
true.
his match.
I see that. Yeah.
The Miz builds these great... think about John Cena at WrestleMania.
Right.
His stuff with Maurice leading into that, The Miz, was fantastic.
Yeah.
All those vignettes they did where they were dressing up like Cena and Nikki Bella, and it was great. I loved it. I don't remember a single thing that happened in that match.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see it. I didn't care about the match. So he's great at building it. He's great at giving you that performance, but I don't ever care to see him in the ring. So.
Well, he is back.
But I do like him as a performer.
And he's back. Obviously, Roman Reigns, the rematch for the title at at Raw 25. A lot of people thinking they've got to get the title off of Roman. That could be the week that they do it. Nia Jax, of course, Asuka is also going to be followed up with tonight, and of course be looking out for Paige, as we talked about earlier. See what they do with her tonight. Guys, we appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in, whether you tuned in live to us or if you're watching this later on during the week. Guys, follow us at voiceofwrestling.net and, of course, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Just go search for us. I'm not giving you all the URLs, but we appreciate you, and we look forward to talking to you next week. So enjoy Raw, and beforehand, if we don't see you beforehand, enjoy Raw 25. Hopefully we'll see you right after next week for a big show that we're both looking forward to, guys. Thanks a lot. For Nick Paglino, I'm Chris Cash. This is the Voice of Wrestling.